Welcome to this negotiation masterclass edition of Negotiate Anything. With over 1,600 episodes featuring some of the world's brightest minds, we've carefully curated 3 powerful conversations for you. What makes this so special is that you'll hear how different experts from different industries approach the same challenge in their own unique ways. Our goal is to give you multiple perspectives so you can build your own unique style. Success doesn't look the same for everyone, and in this masterclass, you will see exactly why. Let's dive in. Mariana, good to see you again, my friend.
Likewise. Thanks for having me back, Kwame.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. So how about you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Mariana Swallow, and I am the Speak Easy coach. My specialty is helping people get really comfortable and really calm with public speaking. Everything I do is customized and it is proven. And I love helping people get comfortable with public speaking, make more confident presentations. And I support leaders who want to get better at this skill as well as their teams. So I offer workshops for groups as well as hybrid workshops followed by coaching.
This is great. And I think I'm glad that you painted a picture of the type of work that you do, because I think when people hear a speaking coach, okay, cool, I'm on stage, but I guess I'm not on stage, so not for me. But now people can recognize, oh, no, this is not just for public speakers, keynote speakers who are on stage all the time. We're all in these situations from time to time where we have to speak in front of people.
Yes.
So this is just a ubiquitous leadership skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is great. I really want to hammer this home because I think some listeners might question the nexus between public speaking and negotiation. And if that's only for new listeners, because everybody knows now that I can connect anything to negotiation.
Yes, absolutely.
So I want you to paint this picture for people who are out there listening to get better at negotiation, and they think about negotiation through that narrow, limited perspective. What is the value of public speaking as it relates to negotiation, sales, and persuasion in general?
Absolutely. Well, it ties to all of those things, right? Because if someone is selling you something, you want to speak to someone who's confident, who's a good listener, who is maybe relating the case or making the case for you. Because Kwame, what you need might be different what someone like me needs versus someone like my husband. So it's really meeting the audience where they're at. Because whether someone's trying to sell to me or negotiate with me, if I don't feel connected, if I don't feel like they're hearing me, I'm not going to listen. And not only will I not listen, I will probably be defensive, speaking from experience.
Listen, you're so right. And I think we all have several years of being humans. And we can all relate to that situation where somebody goes on a monologue and we're like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I know I don't want it. And it is antithetical to our persuasive endeavors. And one of the things that you do that you've mentioned a lot, and I don't want to just assume that everybody's on the same page. You've talked about the audience. And so when you are talking about the audience, who does that actually entail?
Anyone that you're speaking to, especially in this situation, whether you're trying to sell something or you're negotiating. When I think about negotiation, I'm laughing because where my mind automatically goes, Kwame, is not someone like you or me doing business. It goes to, I'm going to disclose here, arguments I've had with my various condominium boards. However, there's still the audience there. And just as you would prepare for a corporate presentation or for some fundraising you're doing for your not-for-profit, it's kind of the same thing. If you need to speak to a board to get funding, something a lot of my clients have to do, you still want to go in there. You want to prepare before you go in there and not just go in there cold, like, here's what I want and you're going to give it to me. Sometimes we think that our reasons and our needs are enough to get us what we want. And that's not always the case. As I'm sure you well know, given your line of business, we really need to do the prep for the audience regardless of the situation.
Yeah, spot on. And what we're recognizing here, and I'm hoping the listeners are picking up on this too, the audience, this can be anywhere from 1 to 1 million people or billions. I mean, it could be really big, right? And so I think adopting this mentality of recognizing that anytime we are speaking or presenting an idea or a concept or those type of things, there has to be some element of presentation skills attributed to this behavior. So there is a really, really clear nexus between negotiation and public speaking and just learning how to present yourself at a high level. And if we don't master that skill, it could have a negative impact on our ability to negotiate and persuade.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I call this doing the audience recon, and that's finding out as much as you can about the audience. And it's not just, well, there's 20 people there, they're recent college graduates. Anything more you can find out. What are their motivations? What do they care about? And sometimes it's as simple as just thinking about the audience in general. Let's say I do have a room full of 23-year-olds who just got out of college. What do they care about? Well, and I actually am working with a group like this right now. It is, how do they get a job? What is important for them to connect with potential employers? I'm a coach for future founders, which helps underserved youth populations start businesses. So what do they, as a group of young people who maybe didn't have resources or maybe didn't get to go to college, what do they need to know about starting a business? I could show up there and spew everything I know about public speaking or spew everything I know about being an entrepreneur. But if I just do it like that, just kind of blanket it, that's not really going to land with them. And that's not going to help them with their business. So before any engagement, I always ask as many questions about the audience as I can to find out who they are, where they're coming from, what's our goal today, but also what's important to them. What are their priorities?
Yes, let's go deeper on this, Mariana, because people might say, okay, got it. Know my audience, do recon. Great. But the meeting I have on Thursday is with my team. So I already know them. I don't need to do recon. So I'll just throw that out there as an alley-oop for you, Mariana, and you could just slam the point home. So
I will slam the point home. Yes, sure. And I love how you worded that because I see this in so many of the corporate clients I work with. When I talk about preparing for a meeting, well, we're all on the same team. I don't need to prepare. Well, we do this every Monday. I don't need to prepare. Well, you might. And maybe it won't be preparing before the meeting because you might go, I've got, Dave from sales and Dave's boss or whatever. But when the meeting starts, that is a great time to ask questions. Maybe iterate the purpose of the meeting and say, we're here to accomplish X. What else is on your mind? Maybe there are other factors, something that gets overlooked a lot. For instance, when companies announce mergers or it's been announced that layoffs are coming, how's that affecting the people in the meeting? There's often outside factors, or it might even just be something as simple, Kwame, as someone has something personal going on that's maybe affecting them that day. I'm laughing because this is the example I give in some of my workshops where I'll say, the guy at the other end of the table, maybe he found out that morning his wife's leaving him. And it sounds like kind of a tongue in cheek, but these things happen where someone might have something going on that's distracting them. Or maybe even if it's not a personal thing, maybe someone on the team who's been part of this project, this next piece doesn't apply to them and their time could be better spent doing something else. So that's why we need to have these conversations with what's on your mind. What's a priority for you today? What's important to you?
Yes, this is so important. And it reminds me of hypothesis that I've heard about when it comes to traffic safety. So the majority of car accidents happen when you're in close proximity to your home. Two main reasons. First of all, most likely you're going to be in close proximity of your home. So yes, that's going to play a role into it. But also, oftentimes we let our guard down when we are close to home and we don't take it as seriously. And so with these everyday frequent types of interactions, we might just say, oh, I know, Mariana, we meet every Thursday, right? So no need to prep. I know my audience. But the reality is that as humans, we are living in a dynamic type of dimension here because it's not just the same person over and over and over again. It's the same person with different issues, different concerns and things like that. So we have to treat them with the respect we would anybody else.
Yeah. And I love that, Kwame. And kind of building on to that, similar to your traffic safety analogy. And boy, can I just tell you, when you said that, I remembered every accident I've been in. And sure enough, it was all like within a mile of my house, no matter where I was living. Yeah. But something I read about Madonna very early in her career was that she took an agenda to every meeting and prepared for every meeting, even if it wasn't her meeting. If the record executives wanted to talk to her, she'd write down what she wanted to talk about. And that, and then also a business mentor of mine who I worked with years ago, Even when it wasn't her meeting, she'd say, well, I have to hop off. I have this 2 o'clock coming on. And I need 5 minutes to prepare. So that's what I do now before every meeting, whether it's a rote, whether it's my check-in with my video editor, or it's brand new and I already wrote up the agenda. I still go and prepare, because by taking that time, we think about things we might not have thought of, but also I'm better prepared to meet my audience where they're at. And I can flex in the moment when I already know what's on my agenda. So
I
flexing
love
your
this.
audience is useful too.
So useful and so easy to overlook. I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
the big takeaway is. We have to prepare, and we will be tempted not to, because we might feel as though we're prepared, but
Mm-hmm.
feeling prepared does not always mean that you're actually prepared. It might just mean that we are operating off of our assumptions and not recognizing our vulnerabilities.
That is the perfect way to put it, acting off of our assumptions. And honestly, Kwame, I think that's why I have this really great job that I do. Because when people prepare presentations, what do? They think about the content, they type it up in PowerPoint, they don't rehearse it, they don't run through it, they don't think about the audience, and then they just get into that boardroom and go blah, 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 blah. Because preparing it and then thinking about the content are two different things.
I think this is a great opportunity for us to talk about the word engagement. And
Mm-hmm.
you telling me about engaging people as the speaker, but also being mindful of engaging as a listener. So can you
Yeah.
break down what you mean by that?
By both parts.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the speaker. The speaker has to be engaging, meaning they are involving the audience. They are making this more of a conversation than a one-way stream of talking. A question I get a lot is, what's the difference between a presentation and facilitation? And even though I teach presentation skills or presentation workshops, what I really teach is facilitation. Presentation is one person speaking. Think about if you, Kwame, or listeners had the unfortunate college experience like I did, where you go into a class and I'm going to keep the nasty words out of my mouth, but the person at the front of the room would just stand there and lecture for an hour, blah, 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 not asking us what we thought, not asking to check for understanding, not asking if we even liked the text we were reading. That's a presentation. One person talking, it's one-way communication. What I encourage my clients to do, and will tell everyone listening here to do, is you find a way to make this more of a conversation. For people who get really nervous presenting, that's a great way to relax yourself, because you're having a back and forth. You're making eye contact, which connects you to the listener and shows them that you're listening. That's another way to be an engaged listener. But anything you can do to engage them, whether it's questions up top, like I gave you the example of, when you're in this regular Monday meeting, hey, what's going on with you guys today? Where's everyone's project at? Is there anything going on outside the project I should know about? With clients I have who are nervous once they get into a presentation situation, but they like connecting with people, I tell them, don't start your presentation right away, with your big slide or whatever. Start with, hey, how is everyone doing today? How was the drive-in? Or if you're on Zoom, how's everyone doing with Zoom? Anyone got any pets or kids or whatever is a way for you to get some of that chit chat going. And it can be small talk, because sometimes that's enough to just relax people. So engaging, speaking to your audience, asking them questions. You can also open the door for them to ask questions. And then, depending on your scenario, whether it's like an all-day meeting or a training or a workshop, you can work in other things such as icebreakers, brainstorming, interactive activities. All depends on what you want to achieve and how much time you have. But all these little things that make you more engaging, they create connection, and your audience knows that you're paying attention to them, you're involving them, they're more likely to buy in and listen to you.
This is so good. And I think a lot of listeners are saying to themselves, this is so scary. Because when I think about those times where we might present just reading off of a PowerPoint slide, it's not just about the skills. A lot of times it's about fear. People are afraid of letting go of control, because they say, what if somebody says something I wasn't expecting? What if I freeze in the moment? And so for the folks who might be afraid of engaging other people, what advice do we have for them?
Oh, I love this question, Kwame. Thank you. So what's the football cliche? You're talking to a non-football person. The best defense is a good offense. The best offense is a good defense. Whichever one you're supposed to do in sports, it's the same thing. And here's how you do that. Plan for things to go wrong. Plan for question. Even if it never happens, then you're at least prepared. And it's interesting, Kwame, I've had this rash of like sales leads and managers lately. And that's one of the things we do is we brainstorm what are some of the most difficult questions you can get? What is the question that will throw you? And what I find, and I'm not trying to paint it with a broad brush across all industries, but I think this happens to a lot of people where, let's say you sell widgets and you're an expert in widgets, but you go to present to a client and they ask you about the manufacturing. Well, you're not on the manufacturing side. You're the sales guy, right? So what if someone asks you about the manufacturing? Do you just freeze? Do you stammer? Do you go, I don't know? No, you prepare for that question. And let's say I am that salesperson who sells widgets. I might write out an answer ahead of time, such as, you know what? That's a great question. That is on the manufacturing side. And I know everything about the tool, but not how it's manufactured. Dave is on the manufacturing side. Can I get your number and I'll ask Dave to give you a call after today? So you prepare for the stuff that might happen, even if it's just having some of those, I'm not the person to answer that. Let me get back to you. It's always okay to say, let me get back to you, or I don't know. And Kwame, you're an expert. Something I've never understood about American corporate society is why do we expect everyone to know everything about whatever it is in their business and expect them to have an answer at the ready now? Like, what is that? I love how you're laughing.
It is a really weird thing, isn't it? Because first of all, it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Second of all, it creates a lot of pressure and tension. And now, third of all, this is an interesting one. It creates some ethical conundrums because a lot of times people don't plan on lying. Sometimes because of their lack of preparation, they have a fear response that results in a lie. And now they're embarrassed because they don't know how to back off. So in that example that you gave, so somebody asks a question, I don't know the answer, but I'm insecure about the fact that I don't have the answer. And so what am I going to do? My amygdala is going to make something up. And now I'm saying, oh my gosh, I just said that, but I can't just say, hey, by the way, the thing I just said was a lie because now I look stupid. And so what we can do is we can essentially enhance ethical behavior and the performance by taking the time to prepare and recognizing that sometimes we might not have the specific answer, and that is completely okay. But you can be that person who knows where to find the right answer. You can put them in touch. And I think the thing that is really so important for us to remember is that preparation will solve the majority of these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can share one thing, this is kind of my mantra. Never confuse knowledge with preparation.
Are you ready to take your business marketing to the next level? Meet Brevo, the all-in-one marketing CRM platform built to help you connect with customers, boost engagement, and grow your business smarter. With Brevo, you can manage all of your customer interactions in one place, nurture leads with their built-in CRM, reach your audience through emails and SMS, and keep them coming back with powerful automations. But here's where it gets really exciting. Meet Aura, Brevo's AI assistant. Aura helps you craft smarter campaigns by suggesting personalized content, optimizing send times, and even analyzing performance data to help you improve your strategy in real time. It's like having a marketing expert on your team 24/7. And of course, Brevo offers advanced analytics, seamless integrations, and AI-driven personalization, everything you need to create multi-channel campaigns that hit the mark every time. Get started for free today or use the code ANYTHING50 to save 50% on starter and standard plans for the first 3 months of an annual subscription. Just head to www.brevo.com/anything and take your marketing further with Brevo and Aura. Oh, that's good. Okay, go deeper. I like this.
Yeah, it's back to what I said earlier, that most people, when they're asked to give a presentation, will just kind of type up their PowerPoint slides, or worse yet, be given a deck and go, okay, I know this. The other thing I see a lot, Kwame, is people who've been at the same company a long time or in the same industry. Those are the ones who don't prepare because they think, well, I know all this stuff. But you know it, but you haven't prepared it. That's why it's important to have things that I teach, like a structure, like some organization, like knowing what to do if you get a question out of left field. And I'm sure all of us can think of times we went somewhere unprepared, whether it was a date. I mean, have you ever done that, Kwame? I feel like I'm self-disclosing so much here today, but oh, how old's your sister? I don't have a sister. Oh, geez, must be that other guy I went out with last week. Kwame, I'm embarrassed, but I know I've done that on dates. I've confused, clients, driving directions, things like that. So it really is just a matter of taking, even if it's only 5 minutes, to go, okay, here are the three things I want to talk about. Or, okay, my boss gave me this deck. Let me review it and let me say my three main points out loud. Just even 5 minutes of preparation. I think what happens is when someone is told, okay, you're speaking it or you're going to this conference and speaking for us, and you have a half-hour slot or you have a 60-minute slot, take 10 minutes for questions. I think people hear that and they think, oh, well, if I want to practice this or prepare it, it's an hour slot. I have to practice for an hour. I have to prepare for an hour. No, you don't. It's just a little bit of time. Athletes, actors, singers, we expect them to spend hours rehearsing and then come do their thing. But we don't give business people that same amount of space. So I invite business people, not-for-profit people, education people, whoever, take that time, block off an hour for yourself in a conference room or 30 minutes, look at your presentation, say your points out loud, because saying it out loud is different than thinking it in your brain. And then maybe make some notes. What do I need to change here? Or go back to your audience recon. Okay, who's in my audience? Maybe I should emphasize this point more than this point.
Absolutely. It's so important. It's so important. And I mean, I can even think about for me and my keynotes too, because sometimes the person that I'm talking to, it's a different audience, want different tweaks. We make those minor adjustments as necessary. And when I look at the slide, I clearly know what I want to say, but it's slightly different from what I usually say. And just taking the time to just talk through it just once or twice, it really makes a massive difference.
Yeah. And if I can build on that, you just reminded me of something when you said, you look at a slide, you might do this for audience A or this for audience B. This is something I learned from stand-up comedy, that it's important to have different paths in comedy, you do it for your jokes. But when it comes to presenting, you switch paths for your audience. Like I know, because you spoke to my class, I teach at Loyola as well as run my coaching business. But the way I share presentation lessons with my college students is very different than what I share for my MBA folks versus my people who are already out and working in corporate America. Because something that resonates with my college students is not going to resonate with a 50-year-old man who's been a lawyer for the last 25 years. So I think it's important too, like you said, in the preparation to look at your material and go, okay, what is going to land with this audience and how can I tweak this piece?
Bingo. This is great. And now, one of the things that I think is so interesting about your approach is that you also focus on engaging through listening. And so, again, this might be a strange concept to people because we understand the value of listening in difficult conversations in general. But then as a speaker, it's similar but different. So can you break that down too?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to go backwards here on something that's really come out of a result of the pandemic. Everyone's on Zoom, right? I am hearing more and more complaints from clients or boards that support not-for-profits where they come to me and say, we love supporting XYZ organization, but man, they look bored when we're on calls with them. And granted, some people just have one of those faces that just is always kind of stony faced. But what I found is, and hopefully some of your listeners can see me on video, the leaning forward, the making the eye contact through the camera, the nodding to show you're listening. This stuff is so important now, especially over Zoom, because what's happening is even when it's not your turn to talk, everyone else is picking up on that and going, wow, how come, why is Mariana sitting back like that? She looks like she doesn't want to be here. And back to what I said earlier, that might not be the case. It might be, I got some bad news that morning, but the thing we've really found with Zoom or Teams or Skype or Google Meet meetings, any kind of virtual meeting, it's kind of like you got to be on even when you're not on, because it shows that you're listening. And this has really become valuable to supporters, to bosses, to colleagues. They want to see that you are there and you are listening. I think we all tell too when they're staying on camera, but like they're answering an email. And people like me, I wear glasses. You can see the email screen come up in my glasses if I stop paying attention. You know, my friend and colleague, Randy Ford.
Yeah.
He's also been caught in that trap too. We've talked about it. It's usually Randy who can see who went on their email because Randy doesn't wear glasses, but something like that. So that's one way is if you're on a virtual meeting. And I'm not saying, Kwame, I'm not saying over the top, like big eyes and leaning forward, but just show that you're listening, just a gentle nod of the head, not looking at your email, not, checking your phone over here. So that's one thing that has really come about is people want to see you're listening virtually. And it's very similar in person too. Show people you're listening. Make the eye contact when you're listening, even if it's not your turn to speak. Leaning forward. Another way to show you're listening, ask questions. Because if that speaker or whoever's leading the meeting, if they didn't listen to this podcast and they don't do the time or take the time to ask you, what's going on with you? How do you feel about this proposal? Whatever, feel free. And this is what I wish more meeting participants would do. Feel free to let your voice be heard and just, little polite interjection, raise your hand. Kwame, excuse me, I know you're talking about XYZ for the summer meeting, but I think it's really important that we put employee recognition in here. Can we talk about that? So letting your voice be heard and asking questions is another way to show that you're there, you're listening, you're participating, and you're with them.
I love this. It's so critical, Marianne. It's so critical. But again, people often overlook it because we might not have been aware of the value of this skill. But also, it can be kind of scary because there might be times where somebody disengages and then you say, okay, maybe I should re-engage them with a question. But what if they disengage because they hate this and they hate me? If I ask them, then they'll tell everybody and and it can become really scary. So we have to blend that mindset and skill set too, because now we have an idea of how to re-engage people. But then also we have to talk about being willing to re-engage people too.
Sure.
And so for people who might be afraid, what advice do you have for them to kind of relinquish control and ask more questions? Oh, you're good. You're good.
Thanks. So two sides of that coin. I would say maybe re-engage them with one more question. And it can just even be a simple acknowledgement, maybe not even a question, something like, Kwame, I've noticed that you haven't shared any of your ideas during brainstorming. Is there something you'd like to share? The flip side of that coin is if they say no, or they clearly are really checked out, they don't want to participate, you don't know what's going on with them, go ahead and drop it. Because as I will, again, self-disclose, when I was a novice trainer many, many moons ago, and this is true for many novice teachers, novice trainers, we want people to like us and we want everyone to be on board. So we end up kind of catering to everyone in the room. And the person who is ignoring us, who's shutting us down, who maybe doesn't like us or is maybe just having a crappy day, they'll tend to withdraw. And the novice trainer will constantly check in with them, constantly ask them to participate, constantly go over and look at what they're doing on their desk. And the truth of the matter is, yes, maybe try and re-engage people, but after maybe one attempt, maybe two, maybe I wouldn't push it. Know when it's okay to drop the rope, because any of this advice I'm sharing, this is how I feel about business advice. Do you have to do this 100% of the time? No. Take what works, throw the rest of it out of the window.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice, because especially when you give the example of somebody going through something, maybe their kid is sick, like you said, maybe they're going through a breakup. Unless you are a healer of some sort with your words, you can't solve my problem, right? And it's not about you too, because a lot of times as speakers, we can take everything personally. This person's disengaged. This person is sleeping. Am I that boring? Oh my gosh, right? But again, a lot of times it's not about us.
Yeah, and I want to hit on something you just said. You said, oh, am I that boring? Something I see, and it's not even just novices. I've seen novices and experienced, maybe not expert people do, is they'll see someone yawning and they'll make a comment like, am I that boring? Or like, oh, maybe you need a nap. When someone does have something going on, don't call attention to it. Don't make it about you. Like, sorry, I'm boring, folks. I've seen so much of that. First of all, it's natural to yawn. Our brains need it. It gives us oxygen. But anything like that, calling attention to the person, it's not professional. And yeah, they might have something else going on. You've got other people in the room. focus on what's giving you the good stuff and just do your best. That's all you can do as a speaker, you know?
Bingo. Yeah. 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 And sometimes you can make it very awkward for people because the person who's in front of the room, they have more authority than they might feel that they have. So, for example, you might be up in front of the room and everybody has their own insecurities. I'm afraid of being boring. I'm afraid of being whatever. Right. And so then when you you call somebody out on it, it seems from your perspective, we're more on an even playing field, or maybe I feel like I'm playing behind because I'm trying really hard and this is a scary situation. But for them looking at you, you have the bully pulpit. You're in front of everybody. You have some authority and now you're picking on people. It could really, really go very sideways very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. So much to explore. And I appreciate this because this is your second time on the podcast and we are batting 1,100% here. So I appreciate you coming on the show. And before you go, remind the listeners again about your program and how people can work with you.
Absolutely. So I am the Speak Easy coach. I help you speak with confidence. And my keynote program, it's not keynote. I have a keynote speech. My signature speech is what happens when you don't get to SNL. But my mastery program is the Speak with Confidence Mastery program. That's my most popular program. And if you want to find me, I am at marianaswallow.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Mariana Swallow. Thanks, Kwame. It's been great to be here.
My pleasure. Great to have you back.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. That was the first part of today's masterclass. Up next, we'll hear from another expert with a different approach, giving you even more strategies to add to your toolkit. Let's keep it rolling. Jody, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So how about you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name is Jody McLean, and I guess I wear the title of CEO of Edens. Edens is a retail real estate owner, operator, developer of a nationally really leading portfolio of 110 places. But truly, I feel like I every day get to work in being a community builder.
Listeners, one of the many things I love about Jody is that she is very, very humble. And so I want you to put on your salesperson CEO hat and help the listeners fully understand the breadth of what you do, because the kinds of deals that you're doing and you and your team are doing are vast. You have a large organization, multiple cities. You just did a West Coast expansion. And so for somebody who is listening who doesn't understand really what types of commercial real estate deals that you're doing, can you paint a picture of what that would look like in their community?
Sure. So today, thank you, Edens is in 13 major markets across the country. We're from Boston, suburban New York, DC, Charlotte, Atlanta, Miami, Houston, Austin, Dallas, Denver, and then up the West Coast, San Diego, LA, San Francisco, and Seattle. So we own about 15 million square feet of real estate, all open air, retail, and mixed use projects. So we have projects in places that range from probably 150,000 square feet to places that are 2 million. And the largest place that we're involved in will eventually be close to 8 million square feet. Not that Edens owns all the square footage, but we are active typically in land assemblage and putting together entitlements, putting together design, and I think most importantly, putting together the vision of what this place can be and can look like. I am sitting here, so I'll talk a little bit as I look around where I sit most days when I come to the office, but I'm in a place called Union Market, which is in Northeast DC. And our vision here is really, can we design what inclusive development, inclusive community really looks like? And that is a vision that goes well beyond buildings, well beyond curation. It thinks about the activities that happen here, the people we inspire to come here. And I think most importantly, how we think about people engaging in a community from very diverse backgrounds.
That's powerful. That is powerful. I appreciate that context. And I think that's going to be really helpful for the listeners too, because it shows that there is a passion and a purpose behind the deals that you are doing. And I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with you and the team hanging out in Scottsdale.
Awesome.
It was so much fun because we had the presentation in the morning. Then I just hung out with the team all day and night.
You got to come to a costume party. Okay, admit we're fun clients.
Exactly, very fun. It was a blast, and so I think that's one of the things that I thought was so impressive because your team sometimes they're doing deals up to in like hundreds of millions of dollars, but everybody's so cool and fun to spend time with, and that speaks to the culture within Eden's that you've created. That's not easy to do, so kudos on that because you can. Being there, I could feel that energy, which is great. But now hearing this story, now it makes sense. Though that type of culture within an organization doesn't happen by accident. The culture is in the communities that you're cultivating and creating. That doesn't happen by accident. And what you've been able to do is you've created synergy between all of these different metrics, diversity and inclusion, the actual rate of return for investors, the feelings of positivity and passion and purpose by the people who are in the organization. And so by being very intentional about paying attention to those KPIs and looking at the data and being strategic about how you could get all of those things in alignment, you've been able to outperform the market and do extremely well for the business. And one of the things that's really important when it comes to all of those things is being prepared. And one of the things I really admired about you and your team when it came to the big negotiations that you did was everybody was mindful about preparing for these deals. And so based on your experience negotiating real estate deals and all of your years of experience in business, tell us about preparedness and the value that it brings.
Oh, I wholeheartedly believe preparedness is the mother of opportunity. What has been so important for me in my career and negotiating is to really first and foremost understand what it is that I want, that we want at a really high strategic level. Not every detail along the way, but I think if you truly understand the outcome that you want, and then you're prepared to really understand the outcome that the person across the table wants, you can change the dynamic from sitting across the table to scooching your chair around and sitting next to the person that you're negotiating with. And I think that's lost on a lot of people, actually, Kwame, that people always feel like a negotiation is setting up a dynamic against one another, where I've always tried to set up a dynamic that feels more like a partnership without ever losing what it is that my end vision conclusion is. And then I understand, and if I understand what yours is, there's almost always a way to get there harmoniously. And if there's not, I'd rather know that right up front. And I can say, you know what I need, what I want to get done, and what you want to get done just will never make sense. We'll never be able to get there. So I can waste the next 3, 4, 6 months in trying to get there, or I can quickly cut it and I can walk away. And when I found that, which is something I think it takes some time to grow into the confidence to be able to do that and the experience. But what I've also found is sometimes very quickly the person who I'm negotiating with finds a little bit more clarity in what they really wanted to get done than what they were openly sharing up front. And so sometimes if you are quickly and willing to say, wait a second, this just will never make sense, and you walk away, wait a week or a few days, and sometimes you get a phone call or an email back that says, I've really been thinking about this, and really, truly, what I need to get done all of a sudden becomes very much more harmonious with what I was trying to accomplish. And you can find ways to get there. And I've also found that I can quickly eliminate a lot of the noise in a transaction. If I can really understand what's most important to you, and I can understand where I need to get to, there's a lot of noise and wasted energy and things that really don't matter to me, but are really important on your side. I'm happy to give those to you. Because the other thing that I've found is that I'm better off to put my energy towards the positive than I am to spend so much energy on the negative, if that makes sense.
Go deeper on that part.
I sit back and I watch there are people who feel this need to be right and to win every little step along the way. And they exhaust themselves and the person that they're working with in all of these smaller negotiations. So sometimes what happens is the longer deals go on, the more likely they are to fall apart than to be put together, than to execute. So a lot of this energy that could be spent in execution and moving on is spent in negotiating for things that ultimately erode confidence, erode trust. And also in my field, in real estate, the one thing we know is that there are cycles and markets move, and sometimes deals move away from you. And so you've expended energy in places that really, when you look back on it, weren't going to make any difference if you won that clause or not won that clause. And it did nothing but erode trust, eroded likelihood of getting your deal done. So I've just learned that, number one, I need to go into any deal, know exactly what it is that I'm trying, where I want to end up, what I'm trying to get done, what are my non-negotiables along the way. And we all have some non-negotiables, fully understand those, be able to communicate all of this right up front, listen very closely. What does the other side want to get done? What are their non-negotiables? And once I understand their non-negotiables, why do I, if they're don't in any way erode my non-negotiables, why am I going to waste weeks and months negotiating those away? Why don't I upfront accept those? Say, wait a second, is this a span I can bridge? If so, I'm not going to waste my energy there.
This is great. And I love the fact that you talked about your willingness to accept acceptable deals. And now, revolutionary thought, right? Now, there's some really aggressive negotiator sitting there with their arms crossed saying, well, Jody, if you can get that value, then claim that value. Why don't you just try to clean their clocks? So what do you say to that person?
What I say to that person is, for me, from my experience, I have found, looking back, that I have created more value by not cleaning their clock, and finding, and I don't want to say find compromise, because that's not what I'm saying. I understand my non-negotiables, and I'm not going to compromise on any of those. I will walk away from a deal. I'm not going to compromise on those. I understand the other side's non-negotiables, but you know what? We didn't get to, if you're so busy cleaning everybody's clock, I think that in the long run, you probably get done 5 deals for every, let's just say 20 deals that I'm going to get done. And I'd rather create value for my communities, for my investors, for this organization, I want to think big, and I want to think, how do I create the most value overall, rather than having to win every single point along the way. You know what? I'll give you a perfect example in my life, which is in tennis. I grew up as a very competitive tennis player, and I promise you, I wanted to win every single match I ever played. I can promise you that. There were moments where I knew you, Kwame. I knew that we were going to go 3 sets. I played you enough. I knew we were going to go 3 sets. It's hot. We're playing at 12 o'clock noon on a sunny day. And you know what? It's not that I'm going to give up on any point, but when you serve way wide to my backhand, I might let you ace me. And I'm not telling you that I gave up on the point, but the energy expended in getting every one of those, what I realized at the end, my tank would be empty and I was going to lose in the 3rd set. What I wanted to know was I was going to win every game in the 3rd set. And so every once in a while, not routinely, but when you hit a great winner, it was great. It was great. I was able to give you that point, and I give it to you, but it was great because I wanted to, at the end of the day, my eye was really on the prize to win this match. And I wanted to win this match because I wanted to win the tournament. And at the end of the week, I wanted the strongest legs on the court. And that's how I feel a little bit in negotiations, is at the end of the day, I want to win, which means I don't want to beat you. Winning to me is understanding the vision of exactly where I want to be at the end of the day, understanding the vision of where you want to be at the end of the day, and both of us standing right there. That is a true win to me. Now, I wanted the big cup and I wanted you to have the runner-up trophy, but in real life, that when I enter a negotiation, and so whether it's sometimes it's a buy sell, that's easy. Sometimes it's a lease, and that's easy to understand. Sometimes it's a zoning negotiation with a municipality. Sometimes it's a negotiation internally with peer, with somebody who works here. And at the end of the day, think about sometimes it's my husband, for goodness sakes. I want to win, and I want to understand what's most important to me, what's most important to him. And neither of us want to walk out of that discussion thinking winner or loser. But if you understand, I feel that way about municipalities. If I'm going to be here, I want to be really great friends with the zoning, with the head of planning, with the council. I want to feel that I'm in partnership with them. But in real estate, you're constantly negotiating, whether it's for something like a curb cut or it's density on your property. But I want to understand, what is the community? What is it that they need? What are they looking for? What is it that I need as an investor in their community? What is it I need as a real estate owner in their community? And at the end of the day, I don't want a win-lose situation. I want a win-win, because I'm in this for the long run with them as partners, but I'm also in this to create the most value, the greatest value for Edens, for our community, for our retail partners, for every neighbor that surrounds us. So I think when it comes to negotiation, what I feel most passionate about is this trite saying of win-win. I know it's trite, but that's really important to me. I think because I have such a perspective of what value looks like and what it looks like long term over time.
So many reasons I love this response, but the number one reason is I didn't know you were a competitive tennis player because I
Oh,
was
yeah.
too.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
really?
I played like that was my childhood playing USTA tournaments, traveling
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the points I made in my first book is that tennis is one of the few sports where you can win while losing the majority of the points, right? Because it's not the best way to win.
No, it's
But,
not the best way.
but you think about it, if you're going up against somebody who has a massive serve, they're holding serve easily, 40 love, 40-15, and all of yours are like going to deuce. It's a tougher game, but you win in a tight tiebreaker. They might statistically win more individual points in that set, but you still win the set because you're winning the right points.
Yeah,
I think
you have to know.
and that's the thing. You have to know which points are most important because not all of the points are created equally. And that's how it is in negotiation too. You have to know which points you need to win, and then you can get a better deal.
As I get older, what I've learned is I learned more on the athletic fields, I think, than maybe I learned in school.
Yes.
I hope that if any child's listening to this, please go to school. But I do think sports are co-curricular because as a female, one of the things that I think a lot of women have to overcome in the workplace is this fear of failure that I'm not sure I ever truly struggled with as much as most women. It's not something I relate to. But as I think about it, I think growing up in tennis, to your point, you're used to having a little failure, right? Every match, if you won a tournament, you probably lost a set somewhere along the way. Every match, maybe you lose a set, you probably lost a game, and you definitely lost a few points. And so failure isn't a negative. It's something, okay, got it, reset, and quickly get back in there. And there's no room for mope-a-dope. I mean, if you're a mope-a-dope, I just lost a point. You and I probably watch these tournaments all the time, and you're watching somebody on TV and you're like, oh, there goes the game. Because you see them go mope-a-dope and you're just like, oh my gosh, get back in there, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's
yeah.
spot on. And one of the things to that point, I learned a lot through sports too. Learned a lot through watching it, and it's like a microcosm of life in many different ways. I was reading Billie Jean King's, not her biography, but talking about gender equity in tennis, the Dollar Rebellion, and she said that I think it's something like 90% of all women in the C-suite were competitive athletes in their youth, in some way. Because it teaches it teaches some level of grit and resilience because you're going to lose, you're going to have to overcome adversity, and you're going to have to do better and find a way to win. And that's what she always says, champions adapt. And in negotiations, we have to be able to adapt.
100%. 100%.
This is great. I had no clue you were a tennis player. That's so cool.
I could talk about that a little bit. The other thing I think sports, especially for young women, I think society doesn't reward us when we were younger, at least when I was growing up, for being aggressive or competitive. But when you're on a sports field, whether you're on the sports field playing field hockey, you're on a court playing tennis, you're in the pool, it was a place as a young woman I could be as aggressive and competitive, and I found that rewarded instead of penalized. And so it doesn't surprise me. It took me a long time in life to really start to be able to bring those same qualities out in the workplace that they're sort of buried and were reserved only for the competitive fields. And so, that doesn't surprise me at all that a lot of female CEOs have that in their past.
Yeah.
All right, back to negotiation, Kwame.
Back to negotiation. Yeah, and I think we can really bring this all back, especially to that preparedness point, because when we're playing sports, the goal is to win. Big picture, the goal is to win. Okay. One of the things that I would say in tennis is like, if I lose a point, I would just say, I guess I wasn't meant to win that point, but I'm still meant to win this match. Right. And then
100%.
when you talked about,
go back. I would just ask you to go back because you said something. You said you have to know the points you have to win. You have to know the points that are okay not to win. That's the same thing in negotiation, right? If you can understand what are your non-negotiables, what are theirs. But I've also learned that you also fill up your basket a little bit with the throwaway points, so to speak, because when you go in with some people that they absolutely need to feel like they've won a few things, right? And so it's no different than what you just alluded to, slightly different, but you fill up your basket, your non-negotiables, and your negotiables, because there's also this emotion to it where a lot of people need to feel like, okay, I've won a few things. So beyond just their non-negotiables. So you also need to go in prepared to know with what are those few things in your basket that you can give on.
yes. Okay. I like the psychology of this too, because we can talk about it in terms of giving on it. And the other way that you described it is some people need to feel like they won those things.
Right.
And so going in, you understand what you can give. And when it comes to creativity and negotiation, really, it comes down to trading things of unequal value. What are the things that you value highly that I don't value as much? Let's trade those things. And I'm going to try to get something that I value at a high level that you don't value as much. And then if you're going up against somebody who's very competitive, it's almost like, and tell me what you think about this, Jody. It's almost like they don't appreciate it unless they have to fight for it. And sometimes you have to make them feel as though they fought for it and it hurts in order for them to feel as though it was like a worthwhile concession that they're willing to trade on.
Yeah. So I always like to spend a little bit of time socially. I don't know if socially is really the right word, but spend a little time getting to know the person that I'm going to be negotiating with, spending a little time understanding their past, how they got to where they are, what has their path been, to try to get to know them as a person. Because there's sometimes you can walk in with somebody and you can just be straight up, hey, listen, I don't want to pull out any stops, Kwame. This is exactly what I need. Here's why I need it. And you can quickly understand whether it's going to work or not. And sometimes you meet people that, to your point, they really have this need to win, to feel like they've pulled a few things out. I don't think to me, it's neither good nor bad. It's just understanding who's sitting across the table, hopefully who's sitting next to you in this moment in time. And it really is, for me, nothing more than just understanding their needs. And part of maybe their non-negotiables is to feel like they won a few more than they lost. That might be part of their non-negotiables. And I actually am totally cool with that. Let me just understand the playing field. And once I can understand the playing field and the rules I'm playing by, I'm happy to engage in any game.
I love it. Oh, Jody, this has been great. This has been great. I have another podcast coming up, so I have to run.
Awesome.
But I really appreciate you coming on the show. And before you go, I want you to let the listeners know again about you and about Eden's, and if they're interested, how they could work with you.
Oh, absolutely. My name is Jody McLean. I'm CEO of Eden's. You can find us hopefully in any one of your communities, and we like to consider ourselves the living room of your community, but you can also find us at our website, which is simply edens.com.
Jody, this was exceptional. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Kwame.
You've just heard one powerful perspective, and now we're moving on to the next. A fresh voice with a new angle on the same challenge, so you can keep expanding your skills. Let's dive in. Karen, thanks for joining us today.
Greetings from Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, bringing some sunshine to the Negotiate Anything podcast. How would you get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Right now, I am a faculty emeritus from Thunderbird School of Global Management, and I had been a faculty member at Graduate School for International Students for about 25 years. And now I'm taking a lot of the material that I've learned and the experiences that I've witnessed and written a book with my colleagues on quantum negotiation. And I'm creating some e-learning modules and doing a lot of coaching and writing around the concept of negotiation, especially under the context of disruption and a lot of cultural change.
Fantastic. Yes, yes, yes. And I have to say, I have to give you a shout out before we start because listeners, we are dealing with a celebrity in the negotiation space because Karen did this fantastic study that I quote in almost all of my trainings. And I remember after we had our conversation, our pre interview chat, game planning, it hit me because I quoted you again. I was like, wait, it's the same Karen. That's crazy. So before we get into it, can you tell the audience about that study?
Yeah, this is a study that I did with my graduate students, and I worked with another negotiation expert, Marty Latz, who had created some planning software. And he and I both have been amazed at how little preparation many people often do when they start a negotiation. So he and I worked together on taking his negotiation software and using it in my graduate level courses, and it gives you an opportunity for the participants to be able to prepare ahead of time and then to do an analysis of their negotiation after the negotiation. And we did a control group of people who didn't prepare at all. And we have some of those in graduate school, believe it or not. And then we did another control group where only one party participated in preparation. And then we did another control group where both parties did the same preparation. And we found that there was a significant difference in the outcome because we could actually quantify this particular case that we did. We had about a 12 to 15% better outcome when both parties were both prepared. And you would think it might be the opposite. If one party's prepared and the other it doesn't, you actually get a better result when both parties are prepared. But it actually showed that preparation has an impact on not only the process, the way people felt about the process, but also in terms of the quantitative outcome, the value that was created. So we've been very excited about encouraging anybody to do preparation. It has an impact.
This is great. Yeah, I love it. And so, listeners, remember, this is a perfect reminder for you to download those free negotiation guides. If you go to americannegotiationinstitute.com/guide, you can get access to over 15 free negotiation guides from a basic negotiation prep guide, salary negotiation, how to negotiate as an introvert, how to negotiate for your car, all of them for free at that link. And really, Karen, I think you gave it away. I think we've been exposed because if people just don't listen to the podcast, but they download the guides and prepare systematically, they'll get significantly better.
Oh, it's true. It's true.
This is great. Well, perfect. Let's get into the content now. So, for today's episode, very excited for it. The three things that we're going to talk about are first, what's missing in negotiation? What are the things that people often miss? Number two, what are the 5 dimensions of humanity? And number 3, how do you handle it if the other side isn't using the approach that you're going to describe today? So, very excited for it. So let's just go ahead and jump into the first one. What is it that is missing in negotiation today?
Well, it's been fascinating for me in this long journey of studying negotiation, doing negotiation, and observing negotiation, that so much of the attention we traditionally place on negotiation, most people want to hear about strategy and tactics, what I call how am I going to get what I want. And then there's been a lot of attention on the what if, or the plan B, or the BATNA. What happens if I don't reach an agreement? And then as time has moved on, then we've really focused a lot on what we want, all the targets all the statements we want to make, the issues, what we want and what they want. That's also been very traditional. But what I have found that even if someone has their how and their what and the what if really down, many times they forget about the why. And I'd say in the last 10 years, there's been a lot more focus on the why. What gives me meaning and purpose, and why do I have certain interests? But the piece that I fundamentally really looked at when I finished teaching and had more time to really look at the research, the current new science research, I found out that we spend very little time on who we are. So I'm finding that focusing more on who we are and who our counterpart is so critical in helping us to actually know more of what we want and how we're going to behave when we get into a negotiation.
And when you say who we are, what does that really mean?
So what I love about this piece is that because of what we're learning in the world of, as I said, new science, neuroscience, in quantum physics, in the stuff on coherence, mind, body, spirit, energy of the body, that I find that once we understand and actually have a deeper awareness, some would call it a mindfulness or an attention to what I will call our 5 human dimensions. And I can talk a little bit more specifically about that as we move forward. But I'll say briefly that knowing who we are on all of those human dimensions and understanding our cultural perspective, our cultural values, our cultural perspective actually helps us to become much more empathetic to understand who our counterpart is. And many times I find that the best negotiations break down because we really don't understand that as who we are seeing a different story of the picture or of life or of what we need. And we can actually alienate someone else when we just don't even understand what their perspective or their take on life is.
Right. This is really interesting. And let me play the role of devil's advocate. Let me put on my skeptical business negotiators hat on. And so let's say, listen, I've been negotiating for 20 plus years. I've been getting great deals. And Karen, you know who I care about? I care about me. And I care about my strategies and my tactics and just kind of imposing myself on other people. Why should I change my approach? What's in it for me?
Well, first of all, I would say that if your strategy is working, then that is going to be what you will continue to do. Primarily, what I often find is that strategy isn't working. The more I would say dominating, the more coercion, and what I would say more egocentric approach, purely self-interested approach, doesn't often work if you're in the context of some important relationships. So, for example, if you're working on a team and you have a project that's due and you're only negotiating and coercing and dominating others in the project, and the project misses its deadline as a result, then it's time to re-examine why the relationship is important and what is your role in it. I would say you move from being egocentric to more sociocentric. That yes, your self-interest is inextricably linked with your team, with your counterparts. So there's a shift in our mindset in terms of our self-interest. This is not to say you're altruistic, that you give up the sense of the self for others. It means that you actually become more realistic, that you are in the context of a social group, a relationship, a team, an organization, a nation state, for example.
Yeah.
So it's in your self-interest to be able to change your behavior so others are going to cooperate with you to get what you need done.
Exactly. You're spot on, spot on. And it's funny because I teach an MBA course in the fall and then I teach at the law school in the spring. And I was talking to one of my students and she stayed after and we were talking about empathy and the importance of connecting with people, understanding them. And she was saying, I just don't get it. Because why don't I just focus entirely on what I need? So it's really funny, the timing of this, because I was actually just having this conversation. And you're absolutely right. Because the thing is, a lot of times with the way that we approach these conversations, we invite unnecessary resistance. right? And so for people out there who have been using this more egocentric dominating model, you might have been getting, if we're just using, let's say, a grading perspective, you might have been getting 80 to 90%. That's
Right.
passing. That's solid. That we're talking B average, A minus. That's good. But we're not considering what we're leaving on the table when it comes to the relationship, when it comes to the person's willingness to continue working with us in the future. And I think that's one of the many benefits of your approach.
And this is why I find the sciences today so fascinating for us in our world, is that it's showing that when we have a lot of resistance or disturbance or interference with others' willingness to cooperate with us, we actually then lose a lot of discretionary energy. That is, many of us will participate, give even more, be a little more honest, be a little more open and sharing when we can feel that there's that, we almost call it a vibration of resonance, that there isn't this kind of resistance. Science is showing us, we can actually measure this now today.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I like that now because my undergrad is in psychology. So I really love nerding out on these resources that are out there now because it's validating what a lot of people have felt but struggled to give words to. And now we're able to see why these techniques work. And so I think that's great. And I'm hoping now that the literature is becoming more robust, that more people are going to get on board and start using this approach. And going back to what you were saying, focusing on who we are as a person, I think this is a great time for us to transition into those 5 dimensions of humanity that you were talking to us about earlier. Can you tell us about that too?
Yes, I have found, and I'll give a very quick little history of what happened in terms of my study and why I've decided to include these 5 dimensions in preparation. I think originally in the negotiation world, we spent a lot of time on kind of cognitive thinking, that strategy and tactics need this very cognitive thinking. So there was a lot of work on the cognitive level. And then as time went on, and this was interesting to me as I was leaving graduate school, the research on emotional and social intelligence was just coming out. And that actually shows us that we need to pay attention to how we are feeling. And then we have to look at how that can impact our behavior. So then I started integrating that material. So the emotional level became important in preparation. And then I started finding a lot of material, scientific material and performance material around the physical element. That is brain performance and physical performance. How lack of hydration, how lack of sleep, how lack of calm for our bodies can impact our negotiation preparation and our process. So then I started integrating more the physical elements, all those things we do in preparation, so our physical body is prepared for very difficult negotiations. And then I came into the world of spiritual intelligence and spiritual capital, that this is beginning to be a part of the mainstream literature, that sense of meaning and purpose. What gives me a sense of meaning and purpose for myself that goes even beyond this one negotiation? So I have found that the more that people can prepare, first they look, whether it's a 5-minute or a 5-year negotiation, very quickly, can you do a quick scan? What is my thinking? Am I thinking in a very scarcity mentality or am I using an abundance mentality? So just that mind shift on your thinking, your cognition. Is the world a limited resource, scary, fearful place, or is it an abundant, benevolent place? Just to start there. Then to look at your emotions. Do I know what my emotions are? And can I manage my emotions so I can help understand others' emotions and help manage their emotions? Then do a quick scan on the social. How do I plan to behave? Do I plan to come out in a coercive, controlling, defensive way? Or do I shift my mindset, align myself so I can be in alignment to cooperate, to listen, to share? And then also very quickly think about, how do I want to show up in this negotiation? Because what gives me meaning and purpose in the world is to be good to others, to share with others. and that I want to be mindful of that when I go into the negotiation, that I want to be in alignment with my values of meaning and purpose in the world. Just doing that puts us in an alignment, and I would say it anchors us to really who we are and what we believe. And as I said before, there's so much evidence to show something happens in our brain and in our nervous system that we can align and have empathy for others, and to remember to look at those things for our counterparts as well. That's what I mean about the 5 human dimensions.
This is great. And what I love about this is not only the fact that this is going to be great for the substantive outcomes of our negotiation, but we're seeing how this is going to help us in all of our relationships, getting a better understanding of who we are, but then just for our overall mental well-being. When we have a better understanding, it's almost like if you become a better person, then you're going to become a better negotiator.
Right. Evidence is out there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. Now, this is great. So let's say, again, hypothetically, let's say, all right, Karen, I'm on board. I've gone through this process. I am now enlightened. What if I'm dealing with somebody who's not on board? What if I'm dealing with that person who is very domineering, who is egocentric, and I'm trying to use this approach, but they're not? What are some things we could do?
Well, here again, you and I could talk for hours on this. I know that this is a big interest of yours as well. So let's just put it in the context of what we've just been talking about here. In terms of what we're learning about human nervous systems, we are, and this is why we call it quantum, because our nervous systems are connected. And you can, even before a negotiation begins, even in initial exchanges, you can tell or you can sense the kind of nervous system that might be your counterpart. And you are to be aware of what you're sending as well, what energy you're sending. So first of all, let's start with the basics. If I'm completely aligned and my nervous system is aligned, I know what I want. I've done my other part preparation. I know what I want and why I want it. And I know that how I want to get it, I want to use problem solving, integrative negotiation strategy, and all my tactics are going to align with that. And I also know what my plan B is, my BATNA, my alternative. I have all that preparation. I am in a nervous system that is calm. First of all, to encounter someone who has an extremely imbalanced nervous system or is not mindful of what is managing their nervous system, and even those who actually use hardball tactics as their go-to strategy, just at first, we always call this kind of a stage in strategy. You start with pull strategies, all of the ways that you can listen, you can find common ground. Always you're looking for what is in their self-interest. They wouldn't be there if there wasn't something in their self-interest. And how can their self-interest become more abundant with the two of you working together? So normally what we find in the research that's done a lot on this is that there's really only, let's say, 2% of the population that has true clinical narcissism itself. And in that case, you will need to find ways very quickly to move to your plan B, or to control, or to just get the minimum of what you need in that situation. However, most of the population doesn't have clinical narcissism, but once they see that it's in their self-interest to cooperate, like you said, to not be resistant, they're going to have less time devoted to this, less conflict, less resources. They're going to get what they need quicker. So if it's in their self-interest, they will change the game, and you're leading the game. And ultimately, you can find that even you can say, well, we agree to disagree. And just to say no, because based on your anchor, on your needs, you can't find what you need together, you can walk away and you can still maintain an open potential for future negotiations with each other, because you have managed the process in a way that doesn't completely alienate or destroy any relationship you might have had in that situation.
Yeah. And I really like the way that you ended that too, with managing the process, because that's really what we're trying to do. When we think about
Right.
negotiation as a process, we want to almost think about it in terms of leadership. That's the way I
Right.
like to think about it. I am leading this negotiation, not in a controlling or domineering way, but
Right.
through my example, I want to demonstrate how we are supposed to negotiate. And the thing is, people might listen to you and say, "Oh, Karen sounds really nice," and they might listen to me and they say, "Oh, Kwame's really nice." But both of us, we've had our negotiations, and they all haven't been nice, right? We've been in
Right.
situations where
Right.
they haven't been nice. I still practice. So, in addition to doing
Right.
my work with the American Negotiation Institute, doing trainings and conflict resolution trainings and negotiation trainings, I still practice as a business lawyer at Carlisle, Patchen and Murphy here in Ohio. And I know opposing counsel. I mean, most of them are great to work with. Some of them aren't,
Right.
but you can still maintain this demeanor and be very respectful and mindful, and still maintain your interests in mind and be assertive in the context of the negotiation. And so, what are some things that you've been able to do to be assertive while still maintaining this type of mindful approach in your negotiations?
Well, can I give you an example here? And first of all,
Yes,
by the way, I want to say I'm so impressed with the work that you're doing.
thank you.
It's just
Appreciate it.
awesome. So let me give you an example of how I've had to practice this as a faculty member. And maybe you can relate to this. Being on a faculty is not all roses and honey. And there's one of the problems I think with faculty in general is that we all are experts in what we do and tend to be very inflexible about the way we want to approach the ideas and the themes and the projects. So I would find that more so than not, 90% of faculty are very difficult to negotiate with. So I was working for a director, a new faculty member who had just come in and asked me to be the associate director of an organization that dealt with cross-cultural communication and negotiation. And one of his ideas when he first came in was that he asked me to go ask all the faculty to put together some programs where we would take students to contacts, either government or corporations in different countries around the world, and that they should all fit into this framework he wanted in this organization. And I had been at my university and I told him that we already do this. We have a program on this. You can't control faculty to do it within a certain program because they each have their individual contexts. And either summer term or winter term, they would take students to these amazing, powerful contexts they had around the world. And students got these marvelous experiences. So I told him we already were doing that. But he insisted that we continue to get them to follow this format in the institute that I was a part of. So I went back to faculty. Still, nobody wanted to come into this institute. So the one day we had a meeting, and of course we always had to meet in his meeting in his office, and it had a round table in the corner. He was sitting on one side, and I was sitting kind of close to him in this round table. And all of a sudden, he started yelling at me and getting very, I would say, very disrespectful, just telling me that I needed to get this done. And he started to almost puff up, and I could almost feel his energy just get really dark. So he got really angry that I wasn't getting this to work in his way. So I got really shaky. So I had a pen in my hand and I just put that down on the table. And then I moved my chair back and I put my hands on my top of my thighs and my feet on the floor. And I took a couple breaths and then I sat back. And then I just said to him, "This must be really hard for you." And he said, "Yeah, this is really frustrating." And that was the end of the meeting and the whole case got dropped. But that was an example that I felt like yelling. But I know that's a no-win situation for me on many counts. I'm not as senior as he is. I'm a female working in a male-dominated industry. And I just felt there would be. So anyway, to me, that's an example of doing quickly my scan that I found I was really scared and I wasn't going to react on fear. And
Right.
it had an impact on changing both of our nervous systems in that situation.
Yes. Oh, I love this so much, Karen. Thank you for sharing that example because that I could feel the tension. Just hearing the story, I could feel the tension where if I were in the situation, it's like, man, I want to slap this guy or I want to run away
Right,
and cry in a corner.
right,
Neither of those options are very productive.
right,
And for the listeners, you've probably heard me say this all the time. So in my book, Finding Confidence in Conflict, I talk about the compassionate curiosity framework, where the first step is acknowledge and validate emotions. Second step is getting curious with compassion. And then third step is joint problem solving. And what I always say is sometimes the conversation is so heated and they're so emotional that you
right.
can't even get to steps 2 or 3. You just need to acknowledge the emotion and get the emotions back down and then move on from there. And that's exactly what you did. You labeled and acknowledged the emotion. And then what happened? He expressed himself and he started to calm down. He started to decompress. And that's the magic behind it. If you acknowledge and validate their emotions and you keep on doing it, eventually they're going to calm down. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's pretty powerful. And that's why I salute all of your listeners out there who are doing their own personal development and their leadership development around understanding and managing their emotions and their behavior in leadership positions. That's so powerful and it's so misunderstood that coaching, debriefing, mentoring, practice, debriefing, practice, coaching, and as you said, this is a lifelong experience in terms of your own personal development and your human potential.
Absolutely. And one other thing too about your story that I really want to impress upon the listeners is that we're all exposed to media. We've all seen movies. And in movies, that's not how the protagonist would have responded. The protagonist would have puffed up in the situation and delivered this flawless, elegant speech and left the other side speechless and confused, right? That's just, it's not how it works in the real world. And the thing that's really funny about the most effective negotiation techniques is that they're boring.
I know. Well, they're exciting to us on another level, right? It's just
Exactly.
so exciting to watch the choreography of something work out in a different way.
Exactly. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Karen, this has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate you joining us. But before you go, please tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and again about the book too.
Yes, I would love to share my email address with all of you. And if you are on LinkedIn, please connect with me there. Continuing to keep posts and keep up with everybody there. Karen Walch, Walch. And my email is Karen, Karen, at quantumnegotiation.com. And there's no space, Quantum Negotiation. And you can find our book, Quantum Negotiation, on Amazon and at Wiley Press. And we have hard copy, soft copy, audible copy, anything that you want. And we'd love to continue to coach and debrief and get more stories all the time. And I'll be sharing one of Kwame's stories pretty soon. I hope to interview you soon sometime for a story. I would love it.
I would love it too. Uh,
Great.
Thank you so much, Karen. We really appreciate it.